The first of the alien carriers cut through the clouds like a molten blade, its descent turning the sky to fire. From her vantage point among the shattered peaks, Sergeant Mara Kade watched the spectacle through the cracked lens of her scope. The air smelled of ozone and scorched stone. Below, the valley that had once been farmland was now a graveyard of machines, burnt-out tanks, fallen drones, and the skeletal remains of what had been the last line of human armor. The alien invasion had turned Earth's defenses into little more than debris, but Mara wasn't ready to call it over. Not yet. Beside her, Corporal Jonah Ruiz adjusted his rifle, the motion slow and deliberate. "They're getting cocky," he muttered. His voice was hushed, but irritation coiled beneath it. "They don't even move like they're in combat anymore." Mara didn't respond at first. Through her scope, she tracked a formation of the invaders as they moved across the valley floor, sleek, tall figures in armor that gleamed like liquid metal. The Kethari. Humanity had never faced anything like them. Disciplined, cold, perfectly synchronized. Their language was a rhythmic hum that carried across the ruined landscape, precise and emotionless. She counted their steps, their spacing, their patterns. Everything about them screamed predictability. That was their weakness. "They're soldiers of habit," she finally said. "Habit can be broken." Jonah gave a low snort. "You make it sound easy. Nothing's easy anymore." He fell silent, letting the wind speak between them. The ridge where they hid was nothing more than a spine of shattered rock, its surface littered with fragments of glassy sand, remnants of an orbital strike that had fused the soil. From here, they had the high ground and a view of the enemy's path through the valley. That was all that mattered. Mara checked the readout on her rifle. Power level stable. Ammunition count, 12 plasma-tipped rounds. Each one hand-forged from scavenged alien cells. 12 chances to make them bleed. That was the reality of their war now. Precision, patience, and punishment. Jonah raised his binoculars, scanning the horizon. "I count 8 scouts, maybe 10, he murmured. "No heavy support. Think they're just sweeping the area." Mara nodded slightly. "They think we're gone. Let's not disappoint them." She adjusted her scope, exhaled, and centered the crosshairs on the lead alien. Its armor reflected the red glow of the carrier overhead, its movements unhurried, careless. Her finger tightened on the trigger. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then she fired. The shot cracked through the morning air, sharp and clean. The alien dropped instantly, a burst of pale light marking the impact. The others froze, turning in perfect unison, weapons sweeping the hills. Jonah fired a moment later, and a second alien collapsed beside the first. 2 down, he said quietly. 8 to go. Make it 6. Mara's second shot ripped through another shoulder plate, spinning the creature backward. Its armor flickered, its energy field collapsing. The alien formation broke apart, but their response was methodical rather than panicked. They began to triangulate the shots, analyzing angles, adjusting formation. The calmness of it sent a cold thrill through Mara's veins. They didn't understand fear. Not yet. Jonah tapped her arm. "You think Command knows we're still breathing? If they don't, they will soon." He smirked faintly, assuming they're still around to get the message. The wind shifted, carrying the faint metallic tang of the alien's weapon fire. Blue-white plasma bolts hissed through the rocks, searing the ground meters away. Dust exploded upward, and shards of stone grazed Mara's cheek. She ducked behind cover, her pulse steady despite the chaos. Jonah rolled beside her, reloading. "They're not used to missing," he said. "They're not used to being hunted," she replied. When the barrage ceased, the valley fell eerily silent again. Through the scope, she saw the remaining aliens spreading out, scanning with handheld sensors. They were searching, but their movements had lost precision. Something primal had entered the rhythm of their patrol, a stutter, a hesitation. Mara noticed it immediately. It was the first crack in their armor. Jonah's voice came through, quieter now. "You ever think about why they came? What they want?" "Doesn't matter," she said. "They came. That's reason enough." He gave a short laugh, though it held no humor. Spoken like a soldier. Mara adjusted her position slightly, lining up another shot. Spoken like someone who's tired of running. Her next round pierced through another alien's chest. The sound of impact echoed across the valley like thunder. The remaining soldiers began firing wildly into the rocks, energy bolts scorching everything in sight. Their formation crumbled. Jonah used the distraction to take out a fourth target, his aim precise despite his trembling hands. "That's 4, he whispered. "You think that's enough to get their attention?" "It's enough to make them angry," she said, a small spark of satisfaction lighting her tone. Through the swirling dust, she spotted the commander, taller than the others, armor marked with iridescent lines. He barked orders in their strange, rhythmic language, trying to reassert control. She could see it clearly now, discipline battling with fear. They were starting to realize they didn't understand this kind of war. Jonah shifted beside her. "They'll send reinforcements." "Good," Mara murmured. "Let them." He looked at her, something between admiration and worry in his eyes. "You really think 2 snipers can make a difference?" "We don't need to make a difference," she said. "We just need to make them remember us." For a long moment, they sat in silence, watching the aliens retreat to regroup. Smoke rose from the valley floor, curling into the dawn. The first wave had faltered. More would come, stronger, smarter, angrier. Mara knew that. But the balance had shifted, however slightly. The invaders had learned something new today. Humanity wasn't finished. Jonah lowered his rifle and leaned back against the rock. "We just pick a fight with gods," he said. Mara chambered another round, eyes fixed on the horizon where new shadows moved through the mist. "Then it's time they learn gods can bleed." The words hung in the air, sharp and certain. Below them, the valley smoldered, whispering with echoes of the dead and the promise of what was yet to come. Night draped itself over the valley like smoke, broken only by the faint shimmer of alien scanners drifting through the ruins. Mara and Jonah lay motionless in their hide, their bodies molded to the terrain. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the hum of distant machines and the slow rhythm of breathing held too long. Somewhere below, the Kethari were regrouping. The 2 shots from earlier had changed the pattern of their march. The aliens no longer strode confidently. Now they advanced with deliberate caution, scanning, whispering in frequencies Mara couldn't translate, but could almost feel, vibrations of frustration and disbelief. Jonah adjusted the drone feed, the small display flickering with red signatures. "They're sweeping grid 7. Looks like a squad of 6. They're using motion sensors this time." Mara's eyes didn't leave her scope. "Doesn't matter. They'll still walk into it." She'd spent the past 2 hours setting the field, scavenged mines from old Earth arsenals, crude proximity traps tied to plasma cells ripped from alien rifles. It wasn't elegant, but it would do the job. The Kethari would never expect humans to repurpose their own technology so quickly. They thought adaptation took time. That was their first mistake. "Think they'll come straight through?" Jonah asked quietly. "They always do. Arrogance is predictable." Jonah grinned faintly, though fatigue dulled his expression. "You sound like you've been doing this your whole life." Mara's voice was low, measured. "Feels like it." Below, the first alien stepped into the trap line. The explosion wasn't large, just a flash and a concussive pop, but it was enough to rip the near soldier apart. The others reacted instantly, firing into the darkness. Plasma bolts carved through ruined walls, each impact lighting the night in stuttering bursts of blue. Mara and Jonah remained still, invisible amid chaos. Jonah tapped the transmitter. "They're scattering." "Let them," Mara replied. Her scope tracked a lone figure separating from a group. Panic made even the discipline falter. She exhaled slowly and took the shot. Another one down. The air vibrated with alien static. Mara could tell the commander was furious. Orders crackled across the alien network. The valley came alive with search drones. Mechanical eyes swept the ground in overlapping arcs. One passed so close to their ridge that its lights painted their faces in ghostly red for a heartbeat before moving on. Jonah swallowed hard. That was too close. Mara kept her rifle steady. If they'd seen us, we'd already be dead. They're guessing now. A moment passed before he said, "You think they ever feel fear?" "Like we do." "Fear isn't foreign to them," she said softly. They've just forgotten what it's for. The aliens advanced again, tighter formations this time, energy shields flaring faintly. They were adapting, but their changes were surface deep. They couldn't comprehend patience, the human art of waiting for the perfect moment. Mara and Jonah watched, waited, breathed as one. When the second explosion hit, it was bigger. 2 traps went off simultaneously, tearing through half the squad. The shockwave rolled up the ridge, peppering them with dust. Jonah coughed quietly, blood flecking his lip. "You're hit," Mara said, her tone flat but her eyes sharp. "Just debris," he lied, pressing a hand to his side. "Doesn't matter." She knew it did, but said nothing. Words couldn't fix what they had left. She adjusted her scope again, scanning the surviving aliens as they fell back toward the transport wreckage. The commander would be recalibrating strategy. Mara could almost sense his mind. Cold, logical, try to quantify something that refused to fit equations. Jonah worked quickly, resetting decoy emitters. The devices flickered, sending false heat signatures into the valley. Within minutes, the alien scanners would see dozens of ghosts where only 2 humans existed. "Think this'll hold them off long enough for exfil?" he asked. Mara's lips tightened. "There's no exfil." He looked at her sharply, but she didn't elaborate. Their orders had never included extraction. They were the distraction, a final message written in enemy casualties. She watched realization settle over him, the flicker of understanding. He didn't argue. Instead, he nodded once and returned to work, his movements slower now, deliberate. A ripple of light caught Mara's eye. The aliens were changing tactics again. Drones began firing flares into the air, bathing the valley in harsh, shifting light. Shadows jumped and twisted, revealing nothing and everything. The Kethari were trying to draw them out. "Smart," Jonah muttered. "Too late," Mara said. She sighted through her scope, choosing a target among the flares. One alien stood higher than the others. Command unit, by its insignia glow. She adjusted for distance, wind, the distortion of heat. Then she fired. The round pierced the alien's armor, and the body fell backward, tumbling down the slope. For a brief moment, the valley froze. The alien frequency spiked again, not in rage this time, but confusion. Jonah chuckled weakly. "They'll start thinking there's an entire platoon up here. Good. Let them waste time guessing." Minutes passed. The light faded. The valley was littered with motionless shapes, alien bodies, shattered drones, fragments of glowing armor. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Mara checked Jonah again. His face was pale, the wound darker now, soaking through his fatigues. "Stay with me," she said. He managed a grin. "Not going anywhere, Sarge. You still owe me a drink when this is done." She almost smiled, then looked away. Through the scope, she saw more movement on the horizon. Another wave assembling. Reinforcements. The first wave had failed, but the next would not hesitate. Jonah noticed her stillness. "They're bringing more?" "Always do." He leaned back against the rock, breathing unevenly. "Then we make them pay for it." The words carried no bravado, just quiet certainty. Mara nodded. She adjusted her sights once more, marking new range indicators. They were running out of ammunition, out of time, but not out of purpose. Below, the alien commander's voice echoed through translation static. The tone was clipped, strained. For the first time, Mara heard something she hadn't before, a tremor beneath the composure. Jonah's eyes flickered toward her. "You hear that?" "I do. What's it mean?" Mara chambered her next round. "It means they're starting to understand." A gust of wind swept across the ridge, carrying ash and silence. The aliens began to regroup, hesitant now, as if aware they were being watched by something more than soldiers, by predators born from desperation. Jonah steadied his rifle beside hers, his voice a faint whisper. "They still think they're hunting us." Mara's eyes stayed on the scope. "Let them keep thinking that." Below, another column of light shimmered, the approach of the next wave. She didn't flinch. She simply lined up her sights, the barrel steady as stone, her voice low and certain. "Time to remind them who the real hunters are." The dawn came blood red, spilling over the jagged skyline like a wound opening across the horizon. Smoke clung to the valley floor, twisting between the ruins where the Kethari had fallen during the night. Mara's rifle lay across her knees, its metal scarred, barrel blackened from too many shots. Beside her, Jonah stirred, his breath shallow. The wound at his side had darkened to a dull violet, soaked through the fabric. He tried to push himself upright, but she pressed a hand against his shoulder. "Don't," she said softly. "You'll reopen it." He gave a weak laugh. "Reopen what? Think I'm past that stage." Mara didn't answer. She could see the tremor in his hands, the way his skin had gone pale beneath the grime. Below them, the alien forces had reassembled. The second wave was larger, dozens of armored figures, supported by mechanical walkers whose steps made the earth tremble. The commander stood at the center, his armor adorned with new markings, symbols of command or pride. Mara couldn't tell the difference anymore. Pride always came before the fall. Jonah squinted toward the movement. "They're not retreating. They don't know how," Mara replied. Her voice carried no malice, only exhaustion. "They'll keep coming until something stops them." He coughed, wiping blood from his mouth. "Guess that's us then." She looked down the ridge, calculating angles, distances. The traps were mostly spent, their ammunition nearly gone. 2 humans against an army. It would end here, but not without consequence. Jonah noticed her silence. "You've got that look again, the one right before you do something reckless." "Reckless keeps us alive," she said. "Alive." He smiled faintly. "That's a generous word for it." The Kethari walkers began to climb the slope, their mechanical limbs puncturing stone. Mara reached for the detonator strapped to her belt. A crude device linked to the last of their charges buried beneath the ridge. Jonah caught her hand weakly. "You blow that now. You'll bury us both." She met his eyes. "Then we'll take them with us." He exhaled, the ghost of a laugh escaping his lips. "Knew you'd say that." The air vibrated with the sound of the approaching engines. The aliens advanced in precision lines, their shields shimmering faintly in the dawn light. Plasma fire erupted from their ranks, searing across the rocks. Mara ducked behind cover, her ears ringing. The ridge shook under the bombardment. Chunks of debris flew past, cutting shallow lines across her cheek. Jonah forced himself into a sitting position, dragging his rifle into place. His breathing was ragged, each inhale a struggle. "Give me the high marks. I'll cover the slope." "Jonah." "Do it," he insisted, voice tight with pain. "You take the walkers. Make it count." Mara hesitated, then nodded once. They worked in silence, the unspoken rhythm of soldiers who no longer needed words. When she leaned out to aim, she saw the commander again, directing the assault with precise gestures. The alien moved with confidence still, but there was a flicker, an edge of caution in its stance. They had learned fear, even if they hadn't named it yet. Her first shot struck the leg joint of a walker. The machine staggered, collapsing sideways into the ranks. Jonah took another shot, clipping a soldier through the chest. The valley echoed with a metallic scream of grinding gears and alien cries. The Kethari began to scatter. Jonah's laughter broke through the noise, short and breathless. "You see that? They're slipping." Mara allowed herself a thin smile. Not for long. The commander signaled again, and new drones took to the air, spinning through the smoke like hornets. Their sensors swept the ridge, locking onto movement. One of them exploded mid-flight. Jonah's shot had found its core. Another burst overhead, raining sparks. But there were too many. A plasma bolt tore through the rock near Jonah, sending a shard into his shoulder. He didn't cry out. His hands steadied the rifle again, fingers trembling but sure. "I've got one left," he muttered. "Make yours count, too." Mara knew what he meant. The detonator rested against her thigh, small and unassuming, the last card in a losing hand. She took aim at the commander one final time. The alien raised his head as if sensing her through the haze. For a heartbeat, their eyes met across the battlefield, 2 predators who had run out of prey. She fired. The shot cut through the air, a perfect arc that struck the commander square in the chest. He staggered backward, armor cracking. The line faltered. The walkers hesitated. Mara pressed the detonator. The explosion ripped through the ridge, a chain of thunder and light. The ground folded inward, swallowing stone, fire, and metal. The alien formation shattered. When the shock wave passed, the valley lay silent, filled with dust and echoes. Mara blinked through the haze, ears ringing. The ridge was half gone, her rifle buried somewhere beneath rubble. Jonah lay slumped against a rock, motionless except for the faint rise and fall of his chest. She crawled toward him, her limbs heavy, lungs burning from the smoke. He looked up at her, eyes unfocused. Did we win? She took his hand. We made them remember us. He smiled faintly, then exhaled and went still. Mara sat beside him, numb. The distant hum of alien engines receded, the survivors retreating beyond the ridge. They wouldn't stay gone forever, but something fundamental had shifted. The Kethari had come to crush humanity beneath their strength. Instead, they had learned what strength truly was, the will to endure, to fight even when nothing was left to fight for. Mara tore Jonah's tags from his uniform and slipped them into her pocket. Her body screamed for rest, but she forced herself to stand. Across the valley, columns of smoke rose where the enemy's advance had stalled. In the radio static, faint voices crackled, human frequencies broken but alive. Other survivors, other ghosts, answering her beacon. She keyed the transmitter and spoke into the silence. This is Sergeant Kade, 5th Recon. Ridge secure. Resistance continues. There was a long pause, then a faint reply. Copy that, Sergeant. We hear you. The words steadied her more than she expected. She looked down at Jonah one last time before turning her gaze to the horizon. The sun had burned through the smoke, sharp and blinding. The world was still broken, but it was theirs. She raised her rifle in salute, the gesture quiet and resolute. They thought they'd find prey, she whispered. Instead, they found hunters. The wind carried her words into the valley, across the dead and the living alike, a promise and a warning both.